Before you can ever become the best of the best, you must begin with a decision, not about what you want, but about who you must become. The starting point of transformation is not goals. It's identity. The person you are today cannot produce the life you truly desire. That version of you is limited. That version of you is attached to patterns, habits, and beliefs that are incompatible with the level of success you seek. If you want the life most will never have, you must become someone most are unwilling to be. This is the truth many avoid. They chase outcomes, but ignore the transformation. They set goals without addressing the mindset, discipline, and behavior required to sustain those goals. Desire is not enough. Talent is not enough. Even hard work by itself is not enough if it's coming from the wrong version of you. You can't outperform your self-image. You can't out-earn your self-worth. You can't outrun your self-talk. Every action you take flows from the story you believe about who you are. If that internal story is small, insecure, or uncertain, then even your best efforts will eventually shrink to match that narrative. That's why the most powerful change doesn't start outside, it starts inside. You must change how you see yourself. You must raise the standard for how you live. You must decide that mediocrity is no longer an option. This is not about arrogance. This is about alignment. When your mindset aligns with your mission, you move with clarity. You don't waste time. You don't second guess. You don't entertain doubt. You operate with a sense of direction that is rooted in identity. But if you skip this inner work, you will stay trapped in cycles. You will work harder, but remain stuck. You will gain progress, then sabotage it, because your identity sets the ceiling. If you want a higher level of life, you need a higher version of self. That version of you does not just wish for results. It demands transformation. It speaks differently. It moves differently. It responds to fear with courage. It responds to pressure with calm. It responds to challenge with composure. Most people never make this shift because they don't want to let go of who they've been. Comfort is familiar, even if it's holding them back. But you must understand this growth will always cost comfort. You cannot evolve and stay the same. You cannot rise and cling to your old mindset. This is where the average stop. They want better, but they're unwilling to become better. They repeat the same patterns and expect new results. That is not transformation, that is delusion. To rise, you must reprogram. To lead, you must let go. To build, you must break old beliefs. Start by asking better questions. Don't ask, what do I want? Ask, who must I become to be worthy of that life? Don't ask, how long will it take? Ask, how long will I commit no matter what it takes? Don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what part of me attracted this? Responsibility begins where blame ends. You must stop outsourcing your future to people, conditions, or circumstances. Your environment may influence your path, but it does not determine your destination. The decision to evolve is always yours. If you feel resistance right now, that's a good sign. Resistance only shows up when something real is on the line. It's the border between who you are and who you're becoming. Lean into it. Don't retreat from it. Use it as confirmation that growth is near. When you finally decide that the person you've been is no longer acceptable, transformation begins. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop tolerating delay. You stop living in reaction and start moving with intention. Look in the mirror, not with shame, but with truth. What habits need to die? What beliefs must be challenged? What environments must be left? The answers may not be easy, but they are necessary. This version of you must go. This version of you was enough to survive, but not enough to dominate. The best of the best operate from a different frame. They are not reactive. They are intentional. They have already decided what kind of person they must be, and they live in agreement with that decision every single day. They don't wait for permission. They don't lower their standard to fit in. They don't chase hype. They chase alignment. You are not here to be average. You are not here to blend in. You are not here to merely get by. You are here to lead. You are here to master. You are here to rise. But you cannot step into your highest life by being casual about your character. You must become before you arrive. You must decide before you achieve. So ask yourself right now, who must I become to be worthy of the life I claim I want? What kind of discipline, thinking, and energy does that version of me live with daily? Get specific. Get honest. Get intentional. Because until you decide who you must become, you will continue to chase success from the wrong identity, and that kind of pursuit never lasts. The foundation will always collapse. But when identity and action match, everything changes. There is no conflict, no confusion, no contradiction. That is how the best of the best live. And it begins not with goals, not with plans, but with a decision to become. Excellence is not built in moments of excitement. It's forged in the fire of repetition. Consistency, not intensity, is the mark of mastery. While most are chasing new methods, new hacks, or new distractions, the best of the best are doing the same thing over and over again, better every time. Repetition is the discipline that most avoid. They want results, but they don't want the routine. They admire greatness, but they despise the grind. What separates the elite from the average is not just talent, it's tolerance. The best can tolerate the monotony. They can handle the silence. They can show up when nothing is exciting and still deliver like everything is on the line. This is the part no one glamorizes. The hours spent perfecting the basics, the drills that look boring to others, the habits that seem small but compound into something massive. There is no shortcut around repetition. You can't microwave mastery. You can't skip your way to skill. What you practice in private is what will eventually show in public. But understand, repetition is not just doing something over and over again. It's doing it with focus. It's doing it with feedback. It's doing it with full attention to refinement. Mindless repetition makes you rigid. Intentional repetition makes you excellent. Each rep must have purpose. Each rep must push you closer to precision, because what you tolerate in practice is what will show up in performance. That's why you must fall in love with the fundamentals. Don't get bored with mastery. Don't run from routine. Embrace the structure that excellence demands. Average people crave variety. They want to be entertained. They jump from plan to plan, podcast to podcast, strategy to strategy, never going deep enough to get lasting results. But the best of the best find freedom in discipline. They don't need a new program. They double down on the right process. They understand that freedom is not the absence of rules. It's the reward of commitment. You must choose discipline before desire, because desire fades, motivation fades, feelings lie, but discipline tells the truth. Discipline says, I don't need to feel like it, I need to become it. Discipline doesn't ask for permission. It moves regardless of emotion. Train yourself to do what is required on schedule without compromise. Make discipline your default setting. Remove choice from the process. Turn your standards into systems. Stop relying on willpower. Start depending on structure. If you always have to decide whether to do it, you've already lost. The elite remove decision from their rituals. They eat the same meals. They keep the same training times. They use the same systems. Why? Because mastery is not built in chaos. It's built in consistency. Ask yourself what would happen if you stopped looking for excitement and started locking in on execution. What if, for the next year, you mastered one thing instead of chasing 20? What if you repeated that one thing until it became automatic, until you could not fail at it? The truth is, repetition doesn't just change your results. It reshapes your identity. The more you repeat something, the more it becomes part of you. If you repeat discipline, you become disciplined. If you repeat excellence, you become excellent. Eventually, it's no longer something you do, it's who you are. That is the goal. To no longer try to be disciplined, but to become the type of person who doesn't know how to be anything else. This process takes time. It will test your patience. It will challenge your pride. Because in the early stages, you won't see much progress. You will question yourself. You will be tempted to quit. You will wonder if it's worth it. That's when most people stop. They confuse progress with perfection. They don't understand that repetition doesn't always produce immediate results. It produces deep roots. Keep going. Keep showing up, even when it's slow, even when it's quiet, even when no one notices. Because over time, repetition compounds. And when it compounds, it creates something unstoppable: confidence, competence, clarity. The best of the best are not confused. They've done it so many times that performance becomes automatic. They no longer need to think. They just move. And that movement is powerful because it's built on preparation. So simplify your life. Choose your craft. Choose your process. Choose your systems. Then repeat again and again until your performance becomes second nature, until your identity aligns with your actions, until your name is synonymous with excellence. Not because you said so, but because your repetition proved it. This is the truth of mastery. Boring builds better. Simplicity scales success. Repetition reveals greatness. Don't wait for motivation. Repeat. Don't chase excitement. Don't ask for approval. Repeat. Let your consistency speak louder than your ambition. Let your repetition become your reputation. If your life is driven by pressure, you will break when it comes. If your life is governed by principle, you will rise when it comes. Pressure is not the enemy, it's the revealer. It shows you where your foundation is weak. It shows you where your values are shallow. It shows you what happens when you react instead of lead. You cannot build a powerful life based on feelings. Feelings change, they lie. They fluctuate with the weather, with other people's opinions, with temporary circumstances. But principles are unshakable. They do not move. They do not fold. They hold you steady in a world that is constantly shifting. When you operate from pressure, you live in survival mode. You make decisions to avoid pain, not to pursue purpose. You bend under people's expectations. You fold under deadlines. You react instead of respond. And eventually, you lose control. Not because life is hard, but because you had no anchor. That's why the best don't live from pressure. They live from principle. They decide what matters most before the storm comes. They define their values before they're tested. They write their code before life throws them chaos. Your principles are your personal constitution. They guide your yes and protect your no. They don't shift based on mood. They don't adjust for convenience. When you live by principle, clarity becomes your companion. Decisions become easier. Temptations lose power. Compromise becomes unacceptable. What kind of principles? The kind that define your behavior, not just your beliefs. It's not enough to say you value discipline. Show it when no one is watching. It's not enough to say you value integrity. Prove it when dishonesty could benefit you. It's not enough to say you value growth. Act on it when it's uncomfortable. A life without principles is reactive. It's fragile. It's guided by what's urgent, not what's important. You chase noise instead of following purpose. You compare instead of commit. You drift instead of decide. Pressure will always be present, but it doesn't have to dominate. Pressure only breaks the unprepared, but it sharpens the anchored. You must choose to become anchored. Anchored in truth. Anchored in purpose. Anchored in what will not move, even when everything around you does. The world will constantly try to pull you off course. People will question your pace. They'll doubt your method. They'll challenge your motives. But when you live by principle, you don't need applause. You don't need permission. You don't even need understanding. Because you're not living to be popular, you're living to be aligned. There is power in alignment. When your life, your habits, your decisions, and your character all move in the same direction, you become unstoppable, not because you're forcing things, but because you're in flow. That kind of power doesn't come from intensity. It comes from integrity. And integrity is only possible when your principles mean more than your preferences. Principles won't always make you feel good. They'll demand discipline. They'll cost you convenience. They'll separate you from the crowd. But they'll also elevate you above the noise. The average person follows the path of least resistance. The best of the best follow the path of highest alignment. There's a difference. One leads to temporary relief. The other leads to permanent elevation. You cannot lead yourself or anyone else if you are guided by emotion. Emotion can support your direction, but they should never be your compass. Principles are the compass. Ask yourself, what are my non-negotiables? What values will I defend even when it costs me? What character traits will I build? Not because they're easy, but because they're essential. If you don't define these, the world will define them for you. And once your identity is up for negotiation, so is your future. Pressure will show up at every level. Pressure to perform. pressure to quit, pressure to conform. But pressure only has power when you don't know who you are. When your identity is rooted in principle, pressure becomes powerless. You stop reacting and start leading. You stop chasing outcomes and start living in order. Order is where greatness lies. When your internal world is structured, your external world responds. You don't need to control every situation. You just need to control your values in every situation. That's what makes people trust you. That's what gives you weight in the world. That's what separates you from the noise. Principle-driven people are rare. They are the ones who rise while others collapse. They are the ones who build things that last. They are the ones who don't just survive storms, they build in the middle of them. You don't need more pressure to grow. You need more principle, more clarity, more conviction. So define it now. Who will you be when pressure shows up? What will you choose when emotion rises? Where will you stand when the ground shakes? Make those decisions now. Live by them daily. Don't wait for the crisis to create your code. Build your code before the crisis ever comes. Because the best of the best don't collapse when life hits hard. They stand taller. Not because they're stronger, but because they're rooted. And roots grow deep when your life is planted in principle. If you want to rise above the rest, you must stop explaining failure and start owning it. Ownership is the doorway to power. Excuses are the gateway to mediocrity. The gap between who you are and who you want to be will never close with blame. It only closes with responsibility. You must take full, radical ownership of your life. Every result you have is the result of what you've accepted, allowed, or ignored. Nothing changes until you claim it. That doesn't mean everything is your fault. But everything is your responsibility. You may not have caused it, but you are still the one responsible to respond to it. You can either choose to become stronger or stay stuck in the story that weakens you. The moment you say, "It's not my fault," you surrender your authority. The moment you say, "It's on me," you reclaim your power. Excuses feel good in the short term. They protect your pride. They keep your ego intact, but they quietly rob your future. The best of the best don't make excuses, not because their lives are perfect, but because they understand that nothing grows under blame. Everything great is built under full accountability. You must remove victim language from your vocabulary. No more. I can't because no more. They won't let me. No more. That's just how I am. You are not stuck. You are not powerless. You are not waiting for rescue. You are capable. You are responsible. You are in control. This is the mindset that elevates. This is the mentality that shifts lives. Because when you own everything, you stop waiting. You stop wishing. You stop reacting. You start moving. You start building. You start creating. Ownership gives you clarity. When it's all on you, you stop waiting for ideal circumstances. You create your own conditions. You build habits that match your goals. You make decisions that reflect your vision. The world owes you nothing. People are not obligated to help you. No one is coming to fix your life. If you're waiting for someone to push you, understand this: no one will push you like ownership will. When you take full responsibility, everything changes. You stop focusing on problems and start creating solutions. You stop blaming your past and start building your future. You stop managing emotions and start mastering outcomes. This kind of thinking is rare. It's uncommon because it's uncomfortable. It forces you to look in the mirror, to admit where you fell short, to acknowledge what you avoided, to accept what you've delayed. But it is that confrontation that frees you. You cannot lead anything you're unwilling to take ownership of. Want a better business. Own your leadership. Want a stronger body. Own your decisions. Want healthier relationships. Own your behavior. Want more income. Own your value and your work ethic. Ownership is not guilt. It's growth. It's not shame. It's strategy. It's not punishment. It's power. If your instinct is to look outward every time something goes wrong, you've already surrendered. If your reflex is to take personal inventory, you're already in control. Ask yourself, what excuses am I still using to justify underperformance? What lies have I told myself to avoid responsibility? What truths have I avoided to protect my comfort? Face them, own them, change them. No more blaming time. No more blaming parents. No more blaming the economy, the algorithm, or the system. Life is not fair, but life rewards those who rise anyway. The best of the best play every card they're dealt like it was the one they wanted. They stop waiting for perfect conditions. They stop resenting setbacks. They use every obstacle as evidence that they are built for more. That's what ownership creates: resilience, focus, momentum. Because when it's all on you, you stop wasting energy on what you can't control. You invest all your effort into what you can control: your attitude, your actions, your reactions. That is where the shift happens. That is where real change begins. Not when the world changes, but when you do. No more hiding behind circumstances. No more postponing greatness. No more living below your level. The future is not promised, but it is possible. If you want it, own it. If you dream it, build it. If you believe it, prove it. No one becomes the best of the best by accident. They become it by choice, daily, deliberately, with full ownership. So make the decision today. No more delay. No more blame. No more retreat. Stand tall. Speak truth. Take command. Own your thoughts. Own your words. Own your results. And when you do, excuses will disappear. Weakness will fade. And the world will witness what happens when a fully responsible human being decides to rise.